Good morning, everybody. I want to read to you. It's all about the New York City carriage horse. I don't even know what you call it. Implosion. Let's start off with John Samuelson, president of Transport Workers Union, has spent $1 million in paid ads to the local media, New York Post, Daily News, taking out multiple half, quarter, full page ads with photoshopped pictures of Mayor Adams, things that I would post on my own social media for a laugh, because what they're doing is literally a laugh. The desperation that they are I don't know. I don't know if it's even desperation. They're basically admitting that they're guilty by their own actions and the attacks that they've taken out on literally anyone that disagrees with them. What do I always say about this? The horse never lies. Doesn't matter what equine industry you're in. Just go to the horse and they're going to tell you. We all know what that means. These clowns who now started a new Facebook group trying to post, YouTube group and a channel that they're trying to show the softer side and their beloved horses, the drivers. Two of the drivers that they used in their first video are drivers who assaulted people that we have on video in Central Park, me being one of them. But John Samuelson has spent $1 million in these ads to run to try to, besmirch, shame, whatever, Mayor Adams and anyone that has anything to do with him in New York City. And the funny thing is, they must be really worried that Speaker Adams might flip and allow this to happen, that there's at least a public hearing on the bill, Rider's Law, because it doesn't look like he's being reelected mayor, not even close. And another thing that they're not saying is they're going after him because they're trying to make the connection that this is all about night class and real estate. Yeah. Anyway, again, the horses never lie. But I'm going to read an op-ed that was posted in the Daily News today from the deputy mayor, Randy Mastro. He hasn't chimed in on this. And what's funny is, I didn't even know this. He's the former attorney, I guess 10 years ago, for night class. But apparently, they have a very broad stroke of reality here about talking about Hudson Yards and that it's all about night class, when in fact it's really about housing, expanding what's already been done there. You're not allowed to have an opinion if it's not their opinion and doesn't go with their agenda. Fact of the matter is, yes, once, and I say it like this, it's just a matter of time, once the horse carriage industry in New York City is banished, that property will be developed. And that's the way it works. And they're going to walk away very wealthy after they sell that property too. It makes you again wonder, why are they fighting so hard? Where is the real money? They've gone on record as saying that the drivers earn between $50,000 and $60,000 a year. That's peanuts in New York City. And how they're going to lose their jobs. One of them was saying, what am I going to do with my horse? And if I lose my job, I had a desk job. I don't want to go. Well, that's the way. That's life. That's reality. And then I found out in a video last night that she owns 2 horses. That's nobody's problem. That's the way it works. You should have an aftercare plan already in effect should your horse break down today. They don't talk about that. We can just keep regurgitating that same story of last year. Bernard, the carriage horse that Copper Horse Crusade rescued, one of the members of our group identified, sent it to me. I made the calls, bing, bang, boom. Adita Berncrank got on it. Now the horse is at Horse Saint. Where is that horse now? I always forget the name of the sanctuary. Doesn't matter. He's not dead, and he's not in a slaughterhouse. Remember what Christina Hansen said, accidentally ended up in a kill pen. Anyway, op-ed, editorial. He's got a little different way of looking at this. Like they're saying, oh, look, all of a sudden, like they're accusing people of being paid off. It's hilarious. Watching a man that is very good at what he does, John Samuelson, when it comes to supporting and he's the union voice for the MTA as well as Amtrak, Long Island Railroad, maybe Metro North. It's all the same. But he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to this horse industry that they got involved with just a few years ago. Randy says, it has been a long time coming, but the stars are finally aligning to ban the New York City's horse carriage industry. Last week, Mayor Adams called on the city council to pass pending legislation to phase out horse carriages by next June. This is now within a year this can happen. And signed an executive order directing agencies to wind down the industry during this transition. All the other candidates for mayor have now joined him. All 4 candidates. Sliwa, Cuomo, Mondami, and Adams himself. As the Central Park Conservancy, all the other 4 candidates for mayor have now joined him, as has the Central Park Conservancy, who really initiated this, where these carriages currently operate. Indeed, according to a recent poll, more than 70% of New Yorkers favor such a ban. They ran a poll through AM New York where overnight, I'll never forget it, I screenshot it. Let's say it was on a Tuesday. It was 800 to less than 300 in favor of banning. Overnight, 4,000 votes came out of nowhere. I found out because they put out an alert to all the 44,000 members of the TW Local 100 to vote. It's easy to do a nonsensical poll. Do a real poll, or even better, do the ultimate poll, John Samuelson. Let the people make the decision. Let it go to the hearing. Let it come up for referendum so the public can vote. If you're so sure that everyone's for it to keep going, what are you worried about? We're still needed to get this done. First and foremost, City Council Speaker Adams has to meet the moment, as Mayor Adams has. A recent series of horrific incidents involving these horses dying or running wild has made this a public safety imperative that can no longer be ignored. Moreover, we have all witnessed how inhumane it is to continue to subject these magnificent animals to carriage life, and how dangerous it is to the public to face out-of-control horse carriages. I'm going to make little comments on here. We've all seen how these horses are being housed. We've all seen how these horses are being treated. You've all seen how many horses I have posted and that we've reported to the city that are lame, injuries that weren't being underweight, the worst farriermanship I've ever seen in hoof care. Right there. And then when you approach them, they attack you, and we have the video of that too. As for the out of control part, what more do you need? Are they waiting for someone to get killed? Could have happened the last time. They got lucky. And admit that they were out there with a mayor that was green to the city. They called her, Christina Hansen herself called her Bambi, the 15-year-old. She's a 15-year-old mayor who'd never seen, untrained, and was being controlled by 2 of their veteran carriage horse drivers, and they turned her loose. She didn't get away. They got out of the carriage. Both of them were not in control of her, and she took off. That's turned her loose. If you're not in control, and this thing's coming down the road addressing this, not yet, I can't talk about it. The Speaker's only response thus far has been to say she will let the legislative process run its course. Technically, she's going to let it run out. But she controls the legislative process, and she tried to rush through rule changes to give her even more power to move bills of her liking. Yesterday, there was a council meeting, and she did end up canceling this vote to give her more power when it comes to addressing a bill and moving it forward. She would have needed 4 more votes to go her way, I believe. Either way, she actually was she was asking the city council to give her more power. Obviously, she couldn't get those votes because she canceled that vote. This is, and what you need to understand and try to ask yourself is, what motivates these people to want to take a side and not let the legislative process, which is to represent the will of the people of New York City, decide what. And a majority is now poised to pass it if the speaker allows the legislation to advance. Why is she blocking it? Let the people decide. That is why the mayor issued a message of necessity calling on Speaker Adams to move the bill. It is time for the lame duck speaker, because they keep calling him the lame duck mayor. Well, she's also the lame duck speaker. So again, what's her motivation? Is she just taking what little bit of power she has to December, to New Year's Eve when everything rolls over and she's out? Why? Makes no sense. Let's get this legislation passed before year's end instead of leaving it to her successor to do, which they will do. That's the other thing they're afraid of. The only thing it'll do is it'll delay this by another, let's say, 6 to 8 months, because Eric Botcher, not Bob Holden, he's retiring as well, will present this again to the city council. It'll be a new bill, same bill, different intro. Nothing changes. And then the process will restart again early next year. So what's holding the speaker back? Perhaps she doesn't want to subject herself to the same $1 million smear campaign now being waged against the mayor and me by the Transport Workers Union, me being Randy Mastro, Deputy Mayor of New York City, International President John Samuelson, simply because we've had the courage and common sense to call for an end to horse carriages in our congested city. Why aren't they attacking the other 3 candidates? They know he's the, what do they call that? The low-hanging fruit. He's the easiest target because they know he's leaving. Samuelson claims TWU is representing the workers in this industry, yet admittedly, it's a role to advocate on behalf of the industry. There's no union contract, no collective bargaining agreement, and apparently no business for these benefits for these workers, who are typically classified as independent contractors, allowing the owners to avoid any such obligations. Yet TWU somehow calls this union representation. We've said this 1,000 times. The hired drivers, the stable workers, okay, are not entitled to union membership and any of its benefits. We saw last year when the one gentleman who was driving Gunner on the West Side, who ended up laying in a parking lot next to the West Side Highway. I'm sorry. Yeah, right. When he got loose, dragged him down the street, he ended up busting his arm and a few ribs, and he had to pay out of pocket for his medical expenses because he's not a union member. They only represent the owners. What do the owners own? The horses and the buildings. Yet they're pointing fingers at everybody else. They're only protecting the people who have the most money and the most to gain when those buildings are sold. Why? How come the regular hired driver, who again are self-employed subcontractors to the owners, even the stable workers, why aren't they entitled to union membership and the benefits that come with it? Makes no sense. Dare you ever ask that question, they run the other direction. The mayor has a head and a heart. He has offered a soft landing to those in the industry once it ceases. This is something I disagree with. You know, it's almost, saying, oh, well, you can do this and we'll retrain you. That's like a backhanded, whatever you want to call it. They're going to have to figure it out themselves because if it was me, I'd say, you had the opportunity to clean this up. Remember last year when they hired Tristan, the horse expert? I'll never forget them on Channel 7 saying, has hired a horse expert. What happened to him? He left because when he found the same issues I did, he actually went on the record with, I think it's called Trinity News. It's a Catholic news media outlet run by, it's within the archdiocese. They interviewed him, and he said that when he would approach these owners about issues, they basically told him to piss off. Same thing they did with everybody else. What is it as I, or most of us in the game, harness racing, equine industry, whether it's racing, competition, show horses, whatever, we're working horses. We do advocate for working horse if done correctly. Care for the horse is number one. Safety of everyone else comes right behind it, and everything to go with it. They don't even want to follow the rules. They have defied everybody. Right last week, I stood there watching them basically flip off the NYPD, Central Park Conservancy, Parks Department, police, everyone, and then cry foul when they're written a ticket. Let the horses stand there unattended, don't care. Where they're not supposed to be, don't care. Now they're going around empty, shouting and barking to the public, carriage rides, carriage rides. That's illegal. They don't care. Park on the east side right in front of me, picking up a fare, don't care. I catch a guy, he's cursing me out. Don't care. How about just obey the rules? And then we'll get physical with you. And they don't care who it is. And it's all caught on tape. For example, what does he say? For example, we have offered to find alternative city employment for the drivers that assures them higher wages. Okay, you make that as an offer, but you don't push that, in my opinion. Subject to collective bargaining agreements that gives them benefits and other benefits they don't have now. Not that I call these people horsemen, but what I can tell you is they just like to have their own clock, no bosses, nobody telling them what to do. Once they hit the park, most of the time they're either BSing with each other, sitting on a fence or off to the side, horses unattended, or like I caught them last week again on 7th Avenue, in the backs of their carriages, horses not attended, sleeping. They're not going to get away with that anywhere else. Goes on to say, we have offered to compensate owners for the value of their licenses, which sold on average for around $75,000. That's the actual, let's say, retail price. They've gone for much higher. By the time this comes down to this ends, see, I don't know if those medallions are transferable to, say, a taxi. I don't know if it's the same thing. I really don't. I know there's 68 carriage horse medallions and tags. We've offered to pursue electric carriages as an alternative to horse-drawn carriages, which owners and drivers prefer to stay in a related industry. Central Park's never going to allow that, but they will be allowed to go everywhere else in the city. That's a bonus. We've even offered to explore opening a stable and creating a nature center in Central Park where families and children can commune with some of these horses, but Samuelson and the TWU won't listen to reason. I said this 2 years ago, build like a museum to the horses, a living museum with some, 1 or 2 paddocks. You walk through a time capsule type stable. There's horses there, but you're talking 3, 4, 5 horses, and just the history of the carriage horse in New York City. That's irrelevant. And that's if you can get the park to give up, an acre or 2 to let that happen. As the saying goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The well is now running dry for this industry from a bygone era. Time to face reality. We will be a safer city, a more humane city, if we end the horse carriage industry now. That's how he ends it. Mastro is the first deputy mayor of New York City. and a longtime attorney. Nearly a decade ago, he represented New York night class, an animal rights group, in a First Amendment case, but hasn't represented it since. And that First Amendment case is what they keep trying to stop us from doing in the park all the time, advocating for the horses, freedom of speech. They're screaming 9 feet, 100 feet. You can't take picture, you can't take video, you can't this, calling the NYPD on us like they did when we found that horse Lucky dead lame in the park. This is their answer to everything that they've created. So what's going to be next? Well, it's like anything else. Now it comes down to the politics. Let them spend all the money they want. TWU can afford it. They need it. I guess they just need a tax write-off because it's accomplishing anything, absolutely nothing. You go on the street, you go on social media, tens and tens of thousands of posts, likes, interactions, people, to dozens who are supporting what's happening. The city just wants it gone. As a horseman, it needs to be gone. New York City is literally, and you all know this, other than maybe a few, it is the absolute opposite for any equine to be exposed to. And the way that they are housed, everyone even in harness racing loves to get their horses out every day because what does it do? Helps them in dozens of ways. First of all, nature demands it. Why? Digestive system, happiness, health. They say they're less. They've had research done that. Less stressed out in New York City as opposed to on a farm. Yeah, that's why they're running through the path with a carriage on them, escaping something. That is the fear. That is their instinct. Oh, Christina Hansen says that they're conditioned. They get used to the horns. Sure they do. But they didn't get used to the garbage truck. Pick a side. They've lost the war. They put it this way. They've already lost the war. They're just not going to surrender. And rightfully so. This is their industry, if you want to call it that. Those people, this is what they do. They've chosen to do and what they're doing, and they don't want to lose it. And I can give you a whole bunch of reasons why they don't want to lose it. Not one of them being, if you're not an owner, the pay. Those guys out there, and if you have talked to me, one, I showed you, they're not making any decent kind of money for living in New York City. Then they have no benefits on top of it, even though this union will keep waving their flag. Yes, we represent the carriage horse industry, just those guys, not the other ones over there. Anyone ever hear this? That's like saying that the TWU only represents the subway workers and not the bus drivers. Or maybe they only represent the motormen and the conductors, but they don't represent the track workers. That wouldn't even cross your mind, right? If you represent an industry, you represent the entire industry. Usually, not in this case, right, John Samuelson?